What missing persons case is the most confusing doesn't add up? Story 1. Terrence Williams disappeared in 2004. He's the subject of a fascinating podcast called The Last Ride. The short version is that he was taken into custody in Naples, FL, after being pulled over in the early hours for traffic violations. He was never seen again. The deputy that pulled him over tried to conceal the traffic stop, even from his own organization, but staff opening a local business saw the whole thing. When the sheriff's department finally looked into it, they discovered the deputy was involved in a similar disappearance of a man named Felipe Santos in 2003. To this day, the deputy claims no knowledge of Williams' whereabouts, despite being caught out in a series of lies. Answer: I lived down there in early 2000s working in the yachting industry. I was absolutely naive as to the level of racism until I sold my business to a local good old boy. Suddenly, people started sharing stories. There are a lot of fishing holes in mangroves and inlets everywhere. There are also more alligators than I've ever seen, and I'm from a Louisiana swamp. I'd never live in Florida again, but especially not there. That area was kind of Deliverance meets Bloodline. Seems like it may only get worse. Story 2. Paddy Moriarty and his dog Kelly went missing in a outback town in Australia with a population of 12 people. Last seen leaving the pub, riding his quad bike, the 1 kilometer distance to his house. He or his dog have never been found, and no one has been charged in relation to his disappearance. Story 3. Susan Powell went missing from her home in West Valley, Utah on December 6, 2009. She is presumably dead. Her husband Josh was the main suspect and just a real piece of work. No one knows what really happened to her. Sadly, in 2012, Josh took down their kids and committed tragic end after Susan's parents gained custody of the kids. Story 4. Brandon Swanson. He drove into a ditch and called his parents for help. They stayed on the phone with him for 47 minutes while they drove around looking for him. They heard him say, "Oh shoot," then the phone went silent. They eventually found his car far away from where he said he was, but he was never found. Answer: reading this was absolutely chilling. It seems at first glance that it's most likely he drowned, but that really doesn't make sense because the water was only 10 feet deep and they would have found the body. He just suddenly said, "Oh shoot," and the phone went silent, but he did not hang up. The phone call continued with total silence from his end. What the fudge happened to him? Story 5. Mary Lou Bostwick. She disappeared July 18, 1972 from Waverly, NY. She was dropped off by her dad to babysit at a friend's house. This was also her 16th birthday. Her mom stopped by later with a cake and presents. The people in the apartment told her that Mary never showed up. However, her bag was in the residence. Nothing else was ever found. There was another girl around the same age, Sharon Costin, who was abducted and taken down in a nearby town about a year later, October 1983 in Sayre, PA. There was a man convicted of that, but he always denied doing anything to Mary. One of the people who testified against him and was given immunity was a suspect in Mary's case. Mary's mom thinks there's a connection, but nothing was ever really found. I've sadly never seen anyone cover her disappearance on any of the podcasts or YouTube shows. Edit. Everything I had posted in my OC was from my memory. I just want to add that she actually went to babysit on July 17th. Her birthday was not until 3 days later. That was the day her mom stopped by. No one ever called her parents to figure out where she was. I don't remember if they ever shared the name of the family she was supposed to be sitting for. No idea who lives at the house. Story 6. Derek Seehausen. My friend was dating him at the time of his disappearance. He was actively planning his future in medicine and was last seen in San Diego. I saw him about 2 weeks before he disappeared. Please send any tips. Edit. 2 months edit. Edit. Super nice guy. Please share. Story 7. The Beaumont Children. 3 kids go to the beach, are seen with a mystery man, and never make it back home. Never found out who the man was or where they went. Their parents just recently died without ever getting any closure. Answer. This one has always stuck with me. I'm quite a bit younger, a lot, but my granddad ran a little beach cafe kiosk on that beach for a long time. He didn't have the cafe then, but he was a prominent businessman in the area at the time. My mum, her siblings were around the same age. My granddad always tells us that they never had any reason to feel their kids were unsafe, but there was a big shift after that. My mum, her siblings would have been allowed to play at the same park beaches as these kids, and my grandparents probably thought nothing of letting them play alone. Story 8. Xavier Dupont de Ligonnès. The whole family, parents and 4 kids, goes missing overnight in 2011. Employers, school, and family receive weird letters informing of their absence or departure, one of them saying they are going into a witness protection program. 2 weeks later, they found the corpses of the mother, the kids and the dog hidden behind the house. They investigate and retrace the father's whereabouts in south of France. He was last seen leaving a hotel a few days before. The region was thoroughly searched, but he was never to be found. Answer. This one is really a rabbit hole if you dive into it. His mother was in a cult, and for a while it was believed that either Xavier believed the world was going to end, or that he pretended to believe that. Many years before everything went down, the day came and went, the world didn't end. One of his sisters seems to also genuinely believe they're in the witness protection program and the bodies don't actually belong to the family. He also had several affair partners, one of which he tried to meet up with in the days before his disappearance. They hadn't seen each other in years. At that point, she did not reply to his letter. My making of it all, his family, his mother, sisters, were prone to delusions, and I think he knew that and tried to encourage these delusions. The witness protection thing was yet another he was trying to implant in their minds, when in reality he eliminated his family and wanted to run off with one his old affair partners. When that didn't work, he either left the country somehow and ran off, or eliminate himself somewhere we'll never find the body. I think it's telling that his oldest son was the last to die. We know that from cell phone records. His dad called him back from school. He was texting that night. We know from his texts the rest of his family wasn't there, so we can conclude they were probably already dead at that point. Why did Xavier take him out to dinner, let him text people, etc.? In my opinion, Xavier was unsure of his plan at this point, but he knew his son would never forgive him for what he'd done if discovered, so he eliminated him too. This makes me doubt that Xavier himself was under some kind of delusion. Well, that and the letter to his old mistress asking to meet up when he was in town. Story 9. Branson Perry, aged 20, disappeared from Skidmore, Missouri in April 2001. He was working on his house with a friend, went to the shed to grab some power cords, and was never seen again. Answer. From the Wikipedia page. On April 10, 2003, law enforcement arrested Jack Wayne Rogers, a 59-year-old Presbyterian minister and Boy Scout leader. Rogers was arrested on charges of first-degree assault and practicing medicine without a license after removing a trans woman's genitals in a makeshift gender reassignment surgery at a hotel in Columbia. No. Story 10. Marshall Iwasa. Good guy. Came back to the hometown to visit his family and friends. Everything, by all accounts, was good. left to take the 2-hour drive to where he was living and never made it. Instead, it was recorded he spent the entire night trying to get into his storage unit and then nothing. A week or maybe more. His truck was found 12 hours away on a back road in the middle of the woods, burnt to a crisp with belongings thrown about everywhere. No sign of Marshall, and from what I remember, the family was adamant that some of the things inside the truck, burnt or not, were missing. Things they knew he had. The truck was even missing parts. It's been 4 years, and there's never been answers. It makes me sad and fearful of long travels. From what I know of him, he was a fantastic friend. I hope they get closure one day. Story 11. Asha Degree. She went missing at the age of 9 from Shelby, North Carolina, United States. In the early morning hours of February 14, 2000, for reasons unknown, she packed her book bag, left her family home north of the city, and began walking along nearby North Carolina Highway 18 despite heavy rain and wind. Several passing motorists saw her. When one turned around at a point 1.3 miles, 2.1 kilometers, from her home and began to approach her, she left the roadside and ran into a wooded area. In the morning, her parents discovered her missing from her bedroom. No one has seen her since. Answer. She escaped from home in the middle of a storm's night and ran into the wood. Which 9-yo would do this? I'm convinced she was groomed, and since she had very limited access to the internet, it was by someone the family knew. Also in his bag was stuff she didn't own, like a book from a public library she didn't take herself, a shirt and a picture of another black little girl. Very puzzling. Story 12. Marion Barter here in Australia boarded a plane overseas in 1997, changed her name beforehand, didn't tell family. Apparently came back to Australia for a few days, according to passenger records, and completely disappeared. It's an ongoing investigation at the moment. There is a podcast about it called The Lady Vanishes, featuring her daughter. So tragically fascinating. Story 13. Jody Heisentrout news anchor that disappeared in the early morning in Mason City, IA. Signs that she was abducted and the investigation is still ongoing with new leads nearly 30 years later. Story 14. Bryce Laspisa. He was driving to his parents' house, 3 ARRs, after an argument with his girlfriend, apparently due to his adult beverage and video game addiction and abuse of prescription medication. Partway through the drive, he pulled off the highway and just sat there from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. A roadside assistance guy checked on him twice and said he seemed fine, coherent, and Bryce told him he would be carrying on back to his parents shortly. Sometime later, his car was found only a few miles away, driven off the embankment, and he was nowhere to be found. Answer. I dislike missing persons stuff. I love resolutions in true crime, however grisly, but I am fascinated by his case. Why he was just parked and not heading home. Truckers, assistance guys, police officers all interacted with him, but then his car was found totaled of a not huge cliff, and nothing of him has been found. They used sonar on a nearby lake, and it turned up nothing. I really hope they figure out what happened to him. If you see pictures of him, he had such a big smile. It's so sad. Story 15. William Tyrrell. In 2014, the 3-year-old boy went missing from his foster grandmother's yard whilst playing with his sister. His foster grandmother were apparently watching them play outside, and the foster mother went inside to make a cup of tea. They then noticed they hadn't seen or heard him in a while, searched the house yard. In 2021, police began searching national parkland near the grandmother's home for human remains. They also revealed that the foster grandmother, were persons of interest in his presumed passing. Earlier today, the foster mother pleaded guilty to assaulting His photos went viral at the time of the disappearance. He went missing whilst in a Spider-Man costume. The photo that was distributed was taken minutes before. Edit. Forgot a word. It should have said that the foster father actually plead not guilty to the charges. Answer. A very similar thing happened recently in Hawaii. 6-year-old Isabella Kalua went missing from her bedroom in the middle of the night. The island went all out looking for her, but strangely, her family, they had fostered then adopted her, were not helping the search. After weeks of searching, investigators interviewed her sister, also a young child, and she told them she had witnessed her unresponsive. Their parents took her away, and she never saw her again. They were keeping that poor girl locked in a dog cage at night because she would get food from the kitchen because she was hungry. It was so heartbreaking, and those monsters still will not even say where they put the body so her birth family can have closure. Story 16. 15-year-old Rebecca Rorsch disappeared in Berlin, Germany, from her sister's house right before leaving for school in 2019. She was alone with her sister's husband, who was a suspect for some time. He was seen driving on a highway towards Poland the morning of her disappearance, and couldn't explain why, used substances as an explanation. Some of Rebecca's belongings are missing, as well as the belt of a bathrobe and a blanket. Her sisters and parents don't believe the BIL did anything and still think Rebecca is alive somewhere. No one has seen her since. Story 17. Wendigoon on YouTube did a video on them that's pretty succinct in telling the story, but to sum it up, the Yuba County 5. It's been a while, so I may be misremembering some details, so I recommend watching it or looking it up yourself. 5 guys head out to a basketball game out of town and never come back. Their car is found halfway up a freezing mountain in the dead middle of winter, over 200 miles from their hometown. Evidence was later found at a small station further up the mountain that at least 2 of them stayed there, but didn't light any fires and, most curiously, didn't even turn on the gas heating system in the shed outside that would have kept them alive. These guys drove 200 miles away from where they were headed, up a freezing mountain in the middle of a snowstorm. If someone or something was following them, and that's why they veered so far off their course, then what the fudge was it that made them that terrified to the point they didn't even light a fire or use the heating system that would have saved them? Answer. I am from very close, like a few miles up the road, to the area where they disappeared. Chico, CA, where they went to watch the game, is a decent-sized town with a university, where they went to watch the game. But once you go up into the mountains from there, it's a totally different world. It's heavily forested, with small paved and unpaved roads, some that lead to nowhere in particular. It's also dotted with tiny communities and lone homesteads, not at all unlike Appalachia in their isolation and attitudes. The Yuba 5 is a very bizarre case, but they are far from the only folk to travel into those mountains and never come back. Story 18. It's no longer a missing person case, and I'm so sorry, but I can't remember her name. But somewhere in Mexico, I think it was, there was a family with 2 daughters. Their maids lived with them. The older daughter got walked to her bus stop by the maids, and when they came back, the younger, I think she was 5, was missing. Parents were still asleep and woke up to the maids looking for the girl. They couldn't find her in or around the home. Turned into a huge police case, searched the entire house, had news reporters in, and sat on the girl's bed. A few weeks later, the girl was found dead, stuffed between her mattress and the wall. The worst part is that the parents were so unbothered. Father just sighed and left for work. Abd, the mother, was stood in the kitchen, smoking and drinking while the maids were looking, while the police and reporters were in the house. Answer. Paulette Gabara Farah. She was actually found at the foot of her bed, not between the mattress and the wall. The blankets were tucked in tightly enough to keep her body basically suspended off the ground, and apparently to contain the smell of decomposition for 9 days, up until the smell supposedly made them research the area. There's a lot of weirdness with the case. Police released a video of them discovering her body that's largely thought to be a reenactment, for one. For another, it's not just that the mom was giving interviews in the room. In the time Paulette was missing, she had a friend come and stay. Severe negligence and some degree of cover-up by the parents' nannies, the authorities, both. Story 19. Chance Engelbert, age 25 when he went missing on the 6th of July 2019. He walked out of his in-laws' house in Moorcroft, Wyoming after an argument with his wife, leaving her and his 3-month-old son in the house. He was seen in the local town, Terrytown, on CCTV traveling west. He has never been seen again. Extensive searches have been made by police as well as friends and family, and nothing has been found. Story 20. Brian Schaffer. There is surveillance video of him entering the bar, but no evidence of him leaving. And supposedly they have accounted for every other person who entered. Story 21. The disappearance of Paddy Moriarty and his dog Kelly. A lot of these cases are about people disappearing on road trips or in unfamiliar cities. Paddy disappeared from his home, 800 meters from the pub he was just at, in a remote town of 12 people. That is a small suspect pool, area, and time frame for a disappearance. Story 22. Amos Mortier. He went missing from his home in Madison, Wisconsin, November 2004, along with his dog, Gnosis. His friends and mother became worried after not hearing from him for weeks. His friends broke into his house to find it cold, dark, halfway unpacked, his dog's food bowl full, and a record player playing eerie music throughout the house. There was also a check from his grandmother on a desk. His dog, Gnosis, would later be found at a neighbor's house miles always. He was unharmed, but skittish. This was cause for alarm since Amos took Gnosis with him everywhere. The police did not take Amos's case seriously and stopped looking for him after 3 days of searching. He had friends who were involved in the local substances trade. Amos might have been selling green stuff. Foul play is suspected in his case, ranging from his friends to a police cover-up. The police have been absolute shoot at handling his case. I might have some details off. It's been a while since I've looked at his case, but it is so much weirder than what I posted. Story 23. Chance Engelbert. Chance. Leslie Engelbert was a 25-year-old husband and father who had recently taken a new job in Moorcroft, Wyoming, before he disappeared while visiting his in-laws in Gering, Nebraska on July 6, 2019. Just a week before Chance disappeared, he lost his job. The coal mine where he had worked as a welder laid off 600 employees. Chance knew he had to find a job quickly, so he accepted a position with a local propane company. He would start his new job when he returned from a 4th of July visit with Bailey's family in Gering, Nebraska. Chance, his wife, Bailey, and their 3-month-old son made the 220-mile drive to visit her grandparents in Gering, Nebraska. On Saturday, July 6th, Chance went golfing with Bailey's dad and her sister's boyfriend. Bailey spoke with Chance while he was on the course, and he seemed to be in a good mood. She said the guys were drinking and having fun together. A short time later, Chance called her back and asked her to pick him up. He said he was upset over a comment one of his golf partners made about his new job. Bailey said they didn't argue on the way back to her grandparents' house, but when they pulled into the driveway, Chance got out of the car and walked away. Bailey said at first she wasn't concerned because when Chance got upset, he would sometimes take a walk to cool off. After Chance walked out of view, Bailey tried calling him, and when he didn't answer, she went looking for him, but she couldn't find him. Chance's aunt received a cryptic text message from him at 9:08 p.m., and shortly after, his phone went dark. A strong thunderstorm blew through Gering around 9 p.m. that evening. Bailey's family speculated he may have sought shelter inside a local business or nearby building. When the storm was over, Bailey's grandfather drove around town looking for Chance, but his search came up empty, and no one has heard from Chance since. It's been 4 years since Chance was last seen in Gering, Nebraska, wearing a short-sleeved button-up Wrangler shirt, dark blue jeans, a belt with a rodeo buckle, old-school roper boots, and a black and white trucker cap. He is 5'9", tall, about 190 lbs, with sun-lightened brown hair, a mustache, and a goatee. Story 24. Michael Chambers, retired firefighter that went missing, disappeared from his house in 2017, no evidence of anything besides a puddle of blood and a missing bike. We all had a feeling the Michael's wife had something to do with it. It also helped she had history with the corrupt sheriff. Her husband knew of an affair she was having just 6 months before he disappeared. They just discovered a body with a bike this year at the lake, not too far from his home. It was confirmed to be him. His wife got a passing certificate done just 2 months after his disappearance. Story 25. Noah Donahoe. On June 21, 2020, Noah, 14, left home on his bicycle at 5:45 p.m. to meet up with friends at a park across town. It was a route he had traveled many times before. He was carrying his backpack, which held his laptop and several books. 5 minutes later, Donahoe was spotted on CCTV footage riding down Royal Avenue, a busy shopping district. By the time he made it to the end of the street, his backpack was gone. No one witnessed how he lost the bag, and cameras didn't.